Yeah.
And everyone has a good opinion. Doesn't mean that that opinion might be correct, factually true, but I try to listen to absolutely everyone and their opinion. I sometimes, I'll like have like an hour-long chat on the plane with like someone who has completely opposing political, religious, or whatever views with me. But it's the chat of not trying to prove them wrong or argue with them, but just trying to understand them. I won't ever say that they're wrong because in their worldview, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
And I am in no place to say that they're wrong.
Hey guys, welcome to BloomX episodes in 2020. We have a great lineup for you guys. As you notice, we're in a new location, the Huddle Share Space. We'll be filming out here from now on. It's also where our offices are. And big shout out to MCRO who continues to support us. If you guys need any apps, any kind of software development, definitely consider them in your process. They do a great job and they support us, so they can support you. And we're on. Faisal, thank you for joining us. You're from Eirene.
Yes.
Which we're going to find out more about.
Well,
you're a really cool history, right? We found you through LinkedIn. Henry really reached out. And just looking at your resume alone, looks like you have some great stories to tell.
Well, yeah. I mean, I told Henry, I don't know why you want me on this podcast. But I guess I like stories. I have a lot of stories. So whatever story you want to hear,
yeah,
I'll tell you.
I mean, you worked in a lot of cool companies.
Yeah.
You started some of your own.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. What's your work history been like, and what's your companies, and how does it all feed together?
Right. So, I mean, I guess you can start from the start where I started my first company in university, first year. Android had just come out. And so I remember sitting there playing around with my Windows mobile phone and kind of destroying it by accident and going, what phone should I get? And the G1 had just come out. And I've been playing with the emulator, the Android emulator. It was called the M release. I was playing with that and I was like, cool, this is a fun thing. I want to build something here. And the thing that I wanted to build was a way to make, anything I build is the pure focus early on in my career was just to make money, right? Let's make money from something we're building. And so I wanted to build a way to sell apps because Play Store did not have a way to sell apps before. It sounds crazy right now, but there was a market there. I kind of blew that opportunity where I waited too long and then they eventually came out with it. But that's how I really got into startups. But even before that, in high school, I was doing a consulting thing. I was writing a book. There's a thing called Adobe Flex that had come out. And so I wrote Adobe Flex 3 in action along with a co-author living in California.
So you said you're consulting in high school?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people knew how old I was, but it was fun. I was building little apps, web apps. They were called rich internet applications. This was when Flash was huge.
What's the year we're looking at?
This is
What's the time frame?
So I am 29, so I don't know how old you are in high school. 13, so this was probably 2003.
2003, 2004.
2003, 2004, something like that.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, yeah. And so I was doing that then, and Cold Fusion was big, and Adobe Flex was big. And so I was doing consulting and people were reaching out to me. I had this thing called G-Unix, a play of G-Unit. But I grew up in Scarborough, in Malvern. I went to Emily Carr, West Hill, so like M&M, G-Unit, whatever. So
you're hilarious.
And I saw Unix, I was like, cool, G-Unix. I think I still own that domain. But anyways, I had G-Unix, which was a rich internet application consulting firm. And people reached out to me and they said, can you build this? So I worked for a bunch of clients. And like for a high school kid, making some $1,000 for like a month of work was pretty good. And so I did that. And then through that, I was writing a lot of blog posts and stuff. And so someone reached out to me and said, do you want to help me write a book? I said, sounds good. Let's do it, right? So I did that around grade 10. So I wrote a book. It was fun times. And then I finally graduated somehow. I don't know how I graduated high school because I had so many other things going on.
Yes.
Where my marks were like my average was 85, I guess, but it was just like this wild, like I was skipping work, skipping class, just doing all sorts of stuff. So I got into McMaster. And as soon as I got into McMaster, I'm like, I do not want to stay here 4 years. This is so stupid, right? I just want to go start something on my own. And so I needed an idea. I got the idea. I met a co-founder. By second year, I said it's time to like dip. And so I kind of explained to my parents that I'm going to take a year off. This is 2000, I guess, or 2000, I mean, not 2000, 2010 or 2011. And so I said, I'm going to take a year off. And so I took a year off and I started working on my startup in a full-time capacity. The mistake I made was I've already been in like a year and a half into my startup. I should have launched a year and a half ago, but I didn't. And I kept working on it. And like I was missing all these windows of opportunities. But I finally got an investment by a startup, a VC here in Toronto. They gave me some money and they said, come downtown and work. So then I said to my parents, I'm taking another year off. So this is like fourth year now, where 2 years I haven't been to university now. That's when I moved downtown. And so that's when I like was officially like doing this. I was paying myself like $100 a month, just running this, trying to get this business off the ground.
Yeah.
But I had like no business experience. And I was just way focused into tech. And so I don't know what I was doing half the time, but I was kind of just like tumbling and making sure something works. Eventually it didn't work. But that realization really came to me when I was in a Via Rail train accident.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so the train flipped. Unfortunately, like 3 people died, terrible.
Oh my God.
I almost died. The cabin was filled with smoke. But what happened was I kind of had this shift in my mindset. And I think I credit this train crash a lot. It's like a blessing in disguise where I guess previous to that train crash, my mindset was like, crap, my startup's failing. I'm a failure. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, oh man, people are going to make fun of me. My family is disappointed. I've let everyone down. I sent like on MSN or whatever links to my startup and it was on Wired magazine and now everyone's going to laugh at me. But like after that train accident and getting through that, my mindset shifted to whatever, right? I could have died and all that was meaningless, right? So why am I going to stress out about that? I mean, if a lot of it is like this Kobe thing that happened, right? Like he worked his entire life and now he's dead, right? And so that really comes down to your values, where a lot of people are like, well, if you're just going to die, why are you going to even bother working as hard as you can? And that comes down to your core values. If you enjoy it, then you will work on it. If you don't enjoy it, then don't do it. Don't do it for the sake of doing it. Do it because you enjoy it. So for me, the decision was, I love doing this, right? I love starting to build companies and like working late nights and just like doing cool stuff, building products and getting it out there and just iterating. So for me, it was just like, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work or not anymore. What matters is me doing it. And one of these things will work. And a lot of my things have worked and a lot, 3 times as much have failed. But for me, the mindset shifted from, I could just die tomorrow. I could leave the studio and get hit by the car and all this was meaningless, right? But it's meaningful to me because I care about it. So it's not so much about the end result anymore. It's so much more about, let's just have fun with it. And so I did that. My startup, then after that I came back and I just said, I'm quitting, right? I left my startup and I went and found a job because money was very important. Like I come from an immigrant family, money is always important, right? So I was like, I haven't like worked at all. I haven't had a single job in my life, so I should go get job experience. And every time I've taken a job or done anything, it's been a very strategic thing on I should join somewhere where I will learn something new. So I wanted to join a new company where I could learn to work in a team because I've been working alone my whole life. And I mean, my entire startup career, so it's yet for the last 3 years. So I started applying. I left March 20th. And for the next 6 days, I applied to a lot of companies. And March 25th, I had an interview at Kobo.
Sorry, what year is this by?
This is 2012 now.
2012.
So a lot has happened in 2 years.
Wait, how old were you?
I was 22.
20.
So at this point, I'm like, let's get a job. Let's just figure out the money thing and use the employer as my investor in the sense that they will be my ATM while I go do whatever the hell I want, right? And give me that freedom. And so I had no idea what Kobo was. I just wanted to get a job. And that mindset, and I'll circle back to that mindset, but I was in a very like tight corner. And I've made sure never to get in that tight corner again because you just make poor decisions. And Kobo, while it was the best company I worked at, it could have easily been the worst, but I took it blindly because I had no idea. I just cared about the money, right? Luckily, it turned out to be one of the best companies I worked for. Amazing people. And so I went in going, I have no idea what this company is, but they want to interview me. And so I'm going to go ahead and interview. So 5 minutes before walking in, I'm in Liberty Village. I'm like, where the fuck am I? Like, I don't understand what this place is. I've never been down to Liberty Village.
Yeah.
But I'm here, and like lunchtime, I see all these different people like eating lunch. I'm like, do I really want to work here? But I'm like, if they pay me, I'll work here. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I went in and they interviewed me. The interview was like a nightmare in the sense that my keyboard didn't work. I was coding and my keyboard stopped working. I'm like, well, whatever. I failed this interview, right?
Jeez.
But I had this mindset of like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like I know I'll get a job, so whatever. So what happened after 2 hours? They interviewed me. They gave me an offer on the spot, and they said to me, and I've never had an interview before, let alone I've never written my own resume before. So like my resume was like a printout of my LinkedIn, because I don't know, I've never really built a resume. So I handed in a command PDF of my LinkedIn, and I said, that's my resume. And they interviewed me. And before going in, I had looked up interview best practices, and they said, never talk about salary. Anyways, the CTO at the company says to me, okay, we'll hire you for senior engineer. You applied for intermediate, but we'll hire you for senior. And that's because I had a lot of Android experience already. And they said, we'll give you 95,000. And I said, okay, right? And they go, is that okay? And I said to him, I said, I don't know. I've been told not to talk about salary in an interview, but I guess this is fine. And so I took it. And I was on this TTC that day going home, and I'm like, this is combined more than what my parents earned. So this is a lot of money for me right now. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to start another business. And so I technically did start another business the next week, but I took the salary, I joined Kobo, and I had the best time at Kobo. It was like fabulous. But in the evenings, I started another business.
Sorry, what made it fabulous?
The people there was great. Like the team was so important. And this was before people talked to me. This was before people cared about values and culture and stuff at a company. At least I didn't. I just wanted the money. So I joined blindly, and like I made some of my best friends there. And some people I still talk to. One of my best friends is in California right now, works at Facebook, and I met him at Kobo.
Can you talk about what Kobo is?
Kobo is an e-reading company. It's a competitor to Kindle.
Okay.
Right?
Kobo. Didn't they get acquired by Chapter's Indigo?
Yes.
Yeah.
They got acquired by Rakuten, and I joined right as the Rakuten acquisition happened. So they got acquired January, and I joined March. And so I saw this Rakuten influence, which is very interesting. But they made it fabulous because I worked on something interesting. It made it fabulous because I got what I wanted. I got money, and I got experience working in a team of like great engineers, like some of the best in Toronto. And 3, I worked on unique products. I actually worked on an Android tablet. Most people work on Android apps, but I worked on the actual tablet, and I worked on the operating system and all that stuff. And so it was absolutely very interesting, right? But in the evenings, I had started a consulting company. And my purpose of the consulting company was, let's get experience on how to build startups. So I'm going to work for early stage. I'm going to consult for early stage startups, take equity, if not a small amount of money, but I want to watch them build the product from a business point of view, because I had 0 business experience. And so I did that, and I worked with a lot of great teams. One of them is Michelle Romanov, did Snap Saves. So I helped her team work on Snap Saves. And then I worked for another charity called Pathways, Jason Shim. And so I worked at all these different early stage startups, I guess. And I built my network, but more than that, I got a lot of good experience. And so I was doing that in the evenings, and during the day, I was just at Kobo. And that's when I first met my co-founder at that point, Ed, who had just sold Lava Life a couple of years ago. And he wanted to start a new business. So then him and I got together, and we just created a startup that did fairly well for us in the next 3 years. So that's like my early stage story there.
Wow, man. It's a lot to digest.
It's a lot. Like there's always something happening.
Yeah.
I'm always doing something, and there's always various different, because I never put all my eggs in one basket. So for me, I just hedge my
Why is
bet.
that?
Because life is short, and it's just like I can spend 5 years building something and it can turn out to be nothing, or I can spend 5 years working on 5 different things,
Yeah.
right? And what most people get caught up on is thinking that they have to be perfectionists. And I think me being lazy at school and getting away with a lot just taught me that you don't have to be a perfectionist in order to execute or be successful by any means. You just have to work smartly and try to build the most valuable part of the product, right? The MVP, right? The MVP doesn't have to be perfect. So if you end up sitting there thinking about all different permutations, like I did for my first startup, then you're never gonna get off the ground, right? I could have launched my first startup within 3 months and gotten away with it, right? Maybe it would have been successful, maybe not, who knows? But instead I spent 2.5 years on it. So what I started doing was whenever I had an opportunity, I calculated the risk and reward. And I said, does this make sense for me to do? Do I have the time to do this? Can I manage my time to do this? And if the answer is yes, then I'll do it, right? And I'll give it my all, but I'll build 70, 80% of the product because that's what you really need to launch and figure it out. And that way I can go to market quicker and I can solve problems quicker. And if it doesn't work, then good. I didn't spend 2 years on it. I spent 2 months on it.
I mean, this is really fascinating because I worked out of a ideation center at the hub at UGSC, and part of a lot of what they do is trying to unlearn this type of behavior where perfectionism, right? Don't launch something till it's perfect. You don't want to fail. Try to minimize your risks as much as possible, and you turn on its head. Kind of like startup culture is about. Launch and test as fast as possible because that's the best way to learn. And waiting too long to launch is actually costly.
Yeah, and cut your losses, right? If something's not working, don't try to fit like a square in a circle. Just move on, right? You iterated 10 times, 15 times. It's not working. Move on.
And you learned this yourself because from your first startup, you said.
Yes, my first many products, right? Like there's so many things that I've done that aren't on my LinkedIn because I don't put everything on my LinkedIn. There's not everything I'm doing even currently, but there's a lot of random things I try where some work, some don't. Some probably make $5,000 in revenue. Some make, like one of my businesses over the course of 3 years, made almost 2 million, right? Awesome, but that's fine. I don't even think that's on my LinkedIn. That was just like a fun project I did. We made a lot of sales off it. I'm like, great, this is great. And some of them like negative, like $10,000 loss. I'm like, whatever, right? Money's gonna come and go, right? Like it's okay. And so I think the biggest learning for me has been not to take it seriously, not to take myself too seriously, because most of life is bullshit, right? Like almost all of it is bullshit. And if you start to think that this bullshit actually matters, then you're gonna have such a bad time where you're gonna like think you're entitled to something where you're not. No one's entitled to anything. And you just get stuck in this circle of like, it's not working, but I'm entitled to it. But like, how is this not working? If I just work hard enough, it'll work. No, some things just don't work and you just move on. And sometimes bad luck, or sometimes it's just you work on it and it works. But you just have to manage your risk accordingly, right? And just try to get as many things as you can done in a short period of time.
I mean, that's a very deep way of looking at it, right? And pretty cynical, if you don't mind me saying. I mean, where does this start? Like when you start thinking about life being bullshit, what is that bullshit?
The bullshit is that people think that just because you've done something, like I think it's in the tech industry, it's in every industry, right? I think the bullshit part is just people taking themselves too seriously, right? Everyone is vulnerable, and if you think you're not vulnerable, that's bullshit, right? If you think that you're like this untouchable, awesome tech CEO, CTO, amazing engineer, that's so stupid, right? Everyone at the end of the day is going to sit at home in their shorts, watch TV. They're all the same people. And so for me, it's just, I don't take it seriously. I take what I do seriously, but I don't take the external factors around it seriously. Like, oh my God, he's popular or whatever. And there's times I fall into that trap. It's easy to fall into that trap when you're meeting someone very successful whatever. And sometimes I meet a lot of very successful people, but I keep myself grounded after, where I like go, wait a minute, right? Just because he's successful doesn't mean that he has all the right answers, right? I can't just listen to all these people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean by like, most of life is bullshit. You just have to kind of navigate and figure out what works for you.
So these social constructs, like
social constructs, right? Like, you know, media, social media, all that stuff. Like, I think the worst thing to have ever been created is social media, and it's the best thing, right? It's the best thing because it brought everyone closer. It amplifies voices. Ads are great. Like, you can make money, whatever. It's also the worst thing to have ever happened to humanity because it has thrown you in this like cynical depression cycle where people are like going on Instagram and like looking at someone in a Ferrari and going like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. It depends on your values, right? And I had this discussion earlier in the day with Henry where it depends on your values. You know, if you value family, then you are more successful than Elon Musk, right? If you value family and you come home and you have a wife and kids or a husband and kids, whatever, and then you are the most successful person on earth. And if you value money, and if you have freedom, then you are successful. If you start judging success by measuring it to other people, you're never going to be successful. You have to be successful based on what you value, right? And I think that's been something I've learned over the years, where yes, I want to make money, millions, billions, whatever, but at the same time, that's not what I value. What I value is actually the position I'm in right now is freedom to do what I want and not have to worry about money, right? I am able to take risks and not have a quote unquote full-time job and work on startups and consulting and all that stuff because that's what I value. The end result is the end result. I have no control over that. The end result for everyone is death, but just before that, it could be I'll be successful, I'll make $1 billion, or I won't be, and I'll make 200K, a million, whatever, right? I mean, I go off on different tangents, but like I say this a lot where my worst case scenario, and if you're in Toronto and you're in tech, everyone's worst case scenario, if you're in tech and whatever, is someone's life goal. Like my worst case scenario is me getting a job and earning 150, 200K. That is fantastic, right? That is my worst case scenario, right? In terms of like my career wise. But that's most people's dream, right? So if you're in tech and if you're in downtown or Toronto or just Canada, even in America, Silicon Valley, you are the 1%, right? And by stressing out constantly and getting stuck in this grind and stuff, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Work if you value work. Don't stress yourself, kill yourself over it, right? Last night I was up till 5 a.m. working. That's not because someone was telling me to, that was because I wanted to, right? That's because I value that and I care about working on something that late or all day long. But that's the freedom I have. Most people in the rest of the world don't have that freedom. And so we are the 1%. And so me saying most of life is bullshit, it's because if you look what's happening somewhere else in the world, people are dying. You can like leave your house and like get shot, right? Like that doesn't happen here, right? So if you start worrying about things, like all that's just bullshit. What's happening out there is real. So I never take all this stuff seriously in the sense that, you know, this is life or death, right? I care about absolutely everything and I want everything to succeed, but I don't see it as a life or death scenario because it's not, right? And if you think your startup succeeding or failing is life or death, then you need to like meditate and like get an objective view on it because your startup will probably fail and you will start something else if you care about it.
That gives a lot to ponder on, man.
Yeah.
You do a lot of consulting still?
Yeah. Currently, I'm consulting. So I am a CTO at the consulting company called Bitstrapped, where I'm helping them out with machine learning, AI projects, working with top tier clients. So that's like this foundation that I built where that pays my bills. I get a lot of experience in different domains, in different industries, and that gives me the freedom to do my startups, right? And take bigger risks.
Yeah.
So everything is based on like setting yourself up to take bigger risks, and then I can take a bigger risk and a bigger risk, and it just compounds.
What's the end result? What's the goals looking for you? Like, are you trying to keep playing that as long as possible?
As long as possible, right? Because it's fun. I like the game, right? Because it is a game,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing more than a game. And if you
How do you measure this game?
I measure it by a couple of things. I measure it by the amount of freedom I have,
Yeah.
and I measure it by the amount of wealth I build, right? Freedom is, being able to take these risks and not being constrained financially, where I'm like, well, I can't take this vacation now, right? Because it's too expensive or whatever, right? And I don't need $1 million to do this. I just need enough freedom to like navigate a normal life, right? Pay my bills, pay my rent or whatever, and not have to like break into my savings and be like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so like when I going back to Kobo could have easily been the worst decision of my life. It turned out to be one of the best, but I was in a space where I needed that money, right? Without that money, I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't justify to my parents that I'm going to keep working. I wanted to help my parents. So I took that Kobo job as like a leap of faith, like they're gonna pay me money. Now they can treat me like a slave or they can treat me like a fantastic engineer. I have no idea what's gonna happen.
You just need the money.
I just need the money. I never wanna be in that position again.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of people fall into that position by working on their startup too late and they keep burning through all their savings. And then they get to a point where they're like, crap, now I only have X amount of dollars, so I need to get a job quick. And you make haste decisions. And if you're lucky, that decision will work out really well. If you're unlucky, you're just gonna have to stick it out and grind it out there till you can build up your savings. So luckily after Kobo, I've never had to make that decision because I've been very cognizant of that. Where if I'm burning through savings, I know exactly how much savings I can burn through. I know when I need to get another job or consulting or have money coming in, but that's what it's all about. Right? So like that's how I measure if I'm winning this game. I don't think there's a winning to this game. I think it's just you play it till you can and then you tap out, right? For me, I guess the goal would be to have a very successful business, one or many.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. One day it'll work out. We'll see if I don't die before that. But I'm not too worried about that end result. I'm more worried about how do I improve myself to make that result more and more achievable.
Cool. There's two things I want to break down with that, right? First thing real quick, what is that successful metric for you again?
Yeah.
Successful business, you said?
Yes, well, successful business, freedom, having the freedom to, financial freedom.
No, so what is a successful business?
Oh, a successful business. Successful business to me is a business where I am able to hire X amount of people and we're able to provide value and have a good profit margin, right? A successful business is not like I'm like raising money every goddamn like week to keep it running, right?
So I'm trying to figure out if it's a successful business is something that is almost self-run. It's an entity that just it's automated and running by itself, and you go and create more of those?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Right? I don't see myself at any company for 10, 15 years. Right? Unless it's like making me like $1 million a day or something. But I will automate as much as possible and try to find the best people to help me out, right? Yeah. I am not smart at all. I try to find people that's smart to like hide my dumbness, I guess, where I'm like, okay, this person's great at this person's great at this, I need to work with them in order to maximize my chances, right? And whatever value I provide there, they fill my weaknesses. So I always try to work with people that can fill my weaknesses, right? So in terms of like building a successful business, if that business is running on its own and it has a CEO, CTO of its own, and I am there and I'm going off and starting something else, that's awesome, right? Like that is something that I totally want to do.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about building it up, right? So do you, because you can code and you engineer solutions yourself, to create these businesses by building it up yourself and then plugging other people into it to run it automatically? Or do you look at people who are building cool companies and insert yourself in to help build them up? Which way?
It depends on, I'd rather do it myself. It also depends on what the company is. So I joined Zoom.ai specifically for the latter option, which was there's a good company there and I want to like inject myself in. So I took like a massive risk. I was like the third employee there. And I said, let's just do this, right? And we grew the company. That's a risk of its own, right? And then right now what I'm doing is I'm building the early foundation and bringing on the right people to help me just execute on that over time, right? So like years 0 to 2 will probably be me with key co-founders and key employees. Then after that, once the business has gone to a certain point where I can bring on and I can afford to bring on smart people, then you can bring those people on and I can go off and start something else again, right? And I'll just probably keep doing this till I die.
And then, so this company, right? So this is already a running company you joined, right? But what you get out of it is equity, I'm assuming, right?
Equity.
Going early into it, so you get some equity of it. You help get the Kickstart up and running. You get some salary out of it as well. But then, as the company gets up and running, your thing is what? To sell the equity, or is it what kind of structure?
So, unfortunately, none of the startups I've worked on early on have gone IPO yet. So, we'll see, or have been acquired, maybe, hopefully. Then I can make some money off that. But the goal is that, right? Either the company just gets bigger and your equity chunk is big, because a company will either go IPO or get acquired, or you can like sell it if the company's really massive, or you can stick on and take on a higher salary and stuff, but that's less appealing to me. What's more appealing to me is then going off and saving up money and going off and starting something new.
Yeah. So it seems to me like you're treating your skill sets in this kind of world, startups and technology and building these and your actual hard skills to acquire assets for yourself.
Yes.
Right? Just like someone would go and buy houses.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. That's actually a very good way to put it. And I've always seen it that way. I have an ability to do, like everyone has this ability. I focused on this ability. Some people are great networkers or whatever. Nothing I have is unique. Nothing I have is specifically just because some genius that I have. I've worked hard at this. So for me, it's just leveraging my strengths to fill in my weaknesses, right? And so I joined Zoom, I've joined League specifically for this, to work with extremely smart, talented people and understand how they do it and make those connections, build that resume, build that brand for yourself, I guess, so that I'm able to do even bigger things, right? Like, I do a lot of consulting for Google. I am what a Google developer expert. Just, I fly around, Google pays for my expenses, and I go talk on topics about Google. A lot of people say, well, why are you doing that? Why isn't Google paying you, right? I'm like, well, they're paying for expenses. Well, you should be paid for these talks. Really, but not really, right? Because, well, how much are they gonna pay me? Like $500, whatever. For me, what's more valuable there is meeting different people and building that resume and that brand, right? Because that is your money will come and go, but your reputation and the networks you build is what stays with you, right? So that's what I care more about, and that's what's really helped me. Like, I'm sure, I know for a fact, after Kobo, I've never interviewed for a job ever again. Every job that I've had has been through my network, right? I'm privileged enough to do that. Every like introduction to like an investor or whatever has been through a network. Even client has been through networks, right? So it's a purely just building your network and being good at it.
Yeah. So let's go back to that framework, right?
Yeah.
Of seeing yourself as acquiring these assets through equity shares, or building the companies yourselves. You maintain some ownership over them. When did you come to this mentality? When did you realize that this is a method of acquiring wealth, of meeting your goals?
I'm not sure. Yeah. It's just kind of innately made sense to me after doing my first startup, where I said, okay, I have a couple of constants in my life. At that point, I had to make money. So now I know that from 10 to 5, that constant is a time block. Now, what can I do to maximize my chances from 6 p.m. till midnight, right? What can I do in those hours to maximize my chances? So I said consulting makes sense first, because then I can start meeting people and I can like build new products and grow my skills, right? After that, building a startup made sense because I had those first skills, right? I knew how to build a proper startup. That's where I met Ed. And so doing these things made a lot of sense to me, just because of the constraints that I put on myself, right? Where some things are just facts in life that I have, and I'm like, I just gotta work around those. And you know, if I was born with $1 million, my parents were like Bill Gates or something, then it would have been a different framework. But given my constraints, that's what I do.
How does that tie into how you are now, like your drive, right? Growing up in Scarborough, Melbourne, right? I mean, that area, I mean, Scarborough has produced so much hustlers. Just from the idea of like having such scarce resources, right? Coming from immigrant families and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough that my parents have never made us feel, my parents both worked their ass off, but they never made us feel like we're poor, but at the same time, we weren't rich, right? And I think that's a lot for the immigrant parents, where they never make you feel like you're in a bad spot, right? And I've seen them both work hard, and I think that kind of transferred on me. None of my parents are entrepreneurial. They think what I do is crazy. They just want me to get a job and just be like, get a job and be stable. But I find that boring. But outside of that, I've learned a lot of like just ethics, work ethics, right? And even from my younger brother, who's like much more smarter than I am by every means and works extremely hard, I learned a lot from him. So it's just like looking at other people and trying to imitate them and trying to like be better, not be better, but like trying to follow in their footsteps. Yeah.
I mean, any mentors that you credit to this? Like anyone that you...
I mean, a lot of my mentors have been like my co-founders and like people I've worked with. One of the biggest, most influential person in my life has been Ed from Lava Life. He's kind of taught me about business.
From Lava Life, the dating site?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's kind of, you know, he's been one of my co-founders for my businesses, and still is. We're doing something else together, but he's kind of framed business in a different way from core principles, and has kind of like instilled those values in me about like how to approach business and what is snake oil and what is not. And so he's been a big mentor for me. And just other people like Roy has been a great mentor from Zoom, and you know, some people, some mentors I've worked with closely, some mentors I've just seen in the CEO capacity, and I've like been at their company and watched them and kind of like learn from them that way. But you know, anytime I meet anyone, I try to learn something from them. Yeah.
No, that's exactly the way you should do it, right? Everyone has a story, something to teach.
Exactly.
Everyone has a story to tell. Yeah.
And everyone has a good opinion. Doesn't mean that that opinion might be correct, factually true, but I try to listen to absolutely everyone and their opinion. You know, I sometimes, you know, I'll like have like an hour-long chat on the plane with like someone who has completely opposing political, religious, or whatever views with me. But it's the chat of not trying to prove them wrong or argue with them, but just trying to understand them. I won't ever say that they're wrong, because in their worldview, they're not wrong. And I am in no place to say that they're wrong, right? Who knows? Maybe they could be right, right? Maybe having guns is the right thing. You know, for me personally, that's absolutely wrong, carrying guns or whatever. But maybe there could be an off chance that it's right because there's something that I haven't considered. But there's some things that I'm just like, I like listening to people and understand what they're saying, whether or not I factually believe it or not.
So what I'm trying to understand is like, you clearly have a lot of things going on, but the real core motivation behind that, I mean, you're clearly, I mean, as an intelligent person as you are, and the skills you're able to acquire or such early on, I mean, it seems to me like you know, what shifted you away from like not having a job or just getting a set income and being happy with that, but to chase the moreness of like building on top on yourself, like
the routine is and being complacent. I don't like being complacent. I don't like just static life. I know it'd be so much easier for me, and I think about it. I'm like, whoa, it's so easy if I could just like wake up 10 a.m., go to work 5 p.m., come back home, and just everything would work. But like at the same time, everything would not work for me because that's not what I want. And I don't like, you know, there's this concept about work-life balance. I think that work-life balance is very different in the way people actually see it. A lot of people see work-life balance as 9 to 5, then 5 to 12, you're with your family, whatever, right? I never see work-life balance as that way. I see it as, like a tightrope or something, where sometimes you got to give more to work and sometimes you got to give more to family, right? That's the balance to me, right? Because that's where you're actually balancing. And sometimes one side wins and sometimes the other side wins. And so for me, just like having a 9 to 5 job is not part of my values. And I would not be happy there because I would not be innovating, I would not be creating something interesting, and I would not be able to build wealth in the capacity that I want to, right? And I have the freedom. Because at the end of the day, I would still be constrained by that 9 to 5 job. Unless it's like paying me so much money where I can save so much more, where I can just be like, cool, now I don't have to ever work again, right? Which is very rare to find. For me, it would be, now I got to think about vacation time and like taking hours off. And the reality is that burns you out, right? Like if you're stuck doing something you don't enjoy just for the paycheck, it will burn you out. And that's what I don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean, our previous guest you met when he was leaving, Hamza Khan, wrote a whole book about that, The Burnout Gamble.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, this is becoming more of a thing, right? And like as the society is changing now, the idea of burnout, the idea of like being unfulfilled, like there seems to be a shift in in our wants and needs. As our basic needs are met, we're no longer
because we're in a first world 1%. We're all 1%. So these are first world problems. You know what that mean? This is a first world problem, right? There are people who can never think about not working because they have to, otherwise they will die. Right? Like this is a first world problem, burnout, and even the option to even consider, I'm going to take a sabbatical because I'm burned out. Yeah. You are so privileged, and I like burnout's a real thing, and so that's why we're able to even think about these things, right? Because in this society we are the 1%, right? We might not have $1 billion, but we have enough money where we can think about and make these decisions. Yeah. So, I mean, the way I see it, I don't know who wrote this article, but I read this a long time ago, where it's called the 4 burners theory. And so imagine 4 burners. There's life, there's family, career, health, and friends. And you have, I don't know, a gas cylinder powering this. So you can't keep all 4 running all at the same time. You will burn out very quickly. In order to be successful, you have to prioritize 3 of them. In order to be very successful, you have to prioritize 2 of them, right? And so I've always subscribed by that theory, where one thing is constant is health. Like health, I think I learned very early on that I got to pay attention to my health. Not that I'm unhealthy, but like you can get very stressed out. And so health is one of the burners that you can compromise on. Now you have career, friends, and family. At this point, you just have to play this game of what am I going to balance at which point in my life, right? My 20s, even now, as I'm about to be 30 in a couple months, has been career, right? My family and friends and stuff have been on half burner because I don't want to get married and have kids right now, all that stuff, because that's not a value thing to me, right? Not that I don't care about these 2 things, but it's not something where I'll be like, I'm going to just sacrifice my career or like turn my career down to 50% so I can move these up. So you just have to play this game, and it depends on value. There's no right answer. That answer is different for each person, right? And that mix is different for each person.
I mean, there's an interesting way you put it about how calculated you are about the value system you focus on. Was there a point where that triggered where like, oh, this is what my values are, this is what I care about?
It's slowly built. It slowly crept up on me, right? Through various different things that have happened in my life where, at some point I started meeting people who had very opposing values and had a lot of conflict with them. And that's when it kind of clicked. And this was, a couple of years ago maybe, or even before that, where it kind of clicked to me where that not everyone has the same values, right? I was naive enough in my early 20s to think that everyone wants to be massively rich, right? Everyone wants this. Everyone does want it. Everyone wants a successful career and stuff, but not many people want it enough to work for it, right? Some people are willing to say, it's fine if I have a shitty job because I'm happy with family, right? And that's perfectly fine if that's what you want. And if you're happy with that, cool, right? And that never, once I understood that people are very different that way, because I've always been that if something's not working, I'll try to fix it, right? Whether it be personal life, whatever, I'll just be like, cool, I'm gonna like fix this because it's not what I want. But that's just my values. And so when that kind of slowly crept up on me due to different conflicts and stuff, it kind of made sense to me that that's who I am and this is the right mix of what I want in my life.
So we're putting it, but just going back to burnout.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience anything like that or close to it?
Probably close to it, definitely. I think I've taken a lot of steps in order to prevent that, preemptive steps, because I know that the cost of burning out and then the burnout phase and the recovery phase and stuff, the ROI is not worth it. So for me, it's always been, let's prevent it even before you get there. So, just in general, like trying to have like some off hours, right? Doesn't matter how hard I work, I still have enough time that I prioritize to just like play Xbox or watch movies, right? Or go on vacation. Doesn't mean I'm not touching my laptop, but it also doesn't mean that I'm not constantly tied to it working and doing something, right? So I've kind of mitigated that burnout till now. Like I haven't really gone through that burnout phase. What I have gone through is just periods and weeks of just like not wanting to work. And when I see myself going through that, it's just like, okay, I need to like make sure this doesn't happen again, right? So I need to I just learned from my mistakes where, okay, what made it so that I got to this phase? Well, because I did not have any time for myself, right? So make sure I have time for myself, right? And that's just, it can be as simple as just watching like 5 episodes of Simpsons on Disney or whatever, right? Just doing stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like I want to go back into more to that actually, like regulating yourself and body and health and things like that, right? I mean, it's becoming somewhat more there's more and more tools available now to do that. Yeah. And there's more need to do that, to regulate yourself. And the way you talk about yourself, you talk about like, you're trying to make yourself better and have more resources to do more. Yep. To aspire for greater. And just keep playing this game, right? Yep. There's a leveling up aspect. Yep. I really like that mentality.
It's just a game.
Right? Do you have a measured approach to that? Like how do you measure yourself leveling up? When do you level up? What's the levels look like?
So I think I've leveled up in the past year. Yeah. And that's because I am able to now not rely on full-time income. Right? I don't have to so that's been a level up for me. Right? Previous to that, a level up was just moving up in my career and having and being able to manage people. So for me, it's more of like, what do I want to achieve this year? What do I want to achieve in the next 6 months? Right? Okay, well, I want to be a better manager, right? I want to be a better people person. I want to be better at this. And so for me, these are like micro levels, right? A good friend of mine, she once told me, it's about eco zones, right? It's very easy to go down an eco zone. It's very hard to move up a zone, right? So for me, it's just like, okay, let's just figure out what the next checkpoint is, what the next zone is, next level, and just work towards that, right? And whatever based on my value system.
I mean, so one of the things we talk about, like we were talking a little bit before the episode, right? About what we here do at BloomX, right? But we're trying to target the problem of the future of work, what it looks like. I shared with you, like, I was doing sales for SaaS companies for a while, and every time I made a sale, I was automating someone else's job and looking at like, how do we take this ability and spread to people who don't necessarily have either the knowledge or the access or the ability. Yeah. And you give them that. How does technology and maybe society itself come back to feed more people to have the ability to do what you do? I mean, imagine if you, I'm similar. I feel the drive you're in, the ability to just do cool things. It drives you forward, and you gain so much out of that. But if you it's like I always think about that. Like someone in my family got sick, and I got pulled into too early into working full time and being tied to the breadwinner, or so many people get these trappings. That it might not really be their fault, but they get pulled into it because of certain situations, things like that, right? Definitely. So one of the things that I'm really following is like Andrew Yang with the freedom dividend, right? I mean, the idea of universal basic income has become a lot more prevalent now. The old idea, love it, right? What do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't fully understand the economics behind it, I've actually wanted to do a lot of research, but from just the high level, the concept makes sense. And I strongly believe in that concept. I don't know how the economics works behind it at all, but conceptually, yes, I strongly believe that giving someone that having their basic minimum needs met, 1,200 a month or whatever Andrew Yang wants to do, is absolutely fantastic. People will stress less, and by stressing less, they will be able to make better decisions. And most of life, people make poor decisions because they get caught up in a cycle of stress. And sometimes decisions are irreversible, right? And once your decisions are reversible, then you just have a whole framework, a new set of rules to play by, and you might not achieve what your full potential is. Yeah. So giving people and lifting them out of poverty, like I think I'm extremely privileged to do what I do, and I hope, and I always have this like guilt in me of I hope other people can do this too, and I want to help other people do this. And so a part of what I do is I have a calendar invite on my Twitter where absolutely anyone can go up and set up a 30-minute call with me. And mostly students do this. And I chat with like students like at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. sometimes, where they can talk to me about their career, their next steps, maybe look over their LinkedIn resume, whatever. And I'm happy to do that, right? Because I want to help enable people to do what I do. Because I think it's really fun. And if you value that, I want to help you do that. So that 1,200, whatever Andrew Yang wants to do, that's fantastic, right? Because it will help people out of poverty. It will help people stress less. If someone can not have to worry about buying groceries, things that I don't think about, I will sit there and I'll spend maybe $500 a week on Uber Eats. But that might be so, like, some of these things, I think about it, I look at my bill, I'm like, there's someone that like, this is like what they earn all month. Yeah. And you can spend that on Uber Eats. If you literally spend 3-4 days on Uber Eats, you have spent close to $300, right? If you buy lunch and dinner. And so I'm like, if people had their basic needs met, then I am sure there will be, society can be more productive economically. There'll be a lot more entrepreneurs. There'll be a lot more people, less getting sick, a lot less people getting sick. And so they'll be able to work more, be happier, and just society will get better. Yeah. A lot of things happening in the world fundamentally are down to frustration, right? People just being frustration and desperation. That frustration comes out of desperation, right? It's just that, like, not to get too political, but like this rise of like, the right and whatever, racism and fascism and all that stuff, I don't think they're bad people. I mean, some of them are bad, but I don't think most people are bad people. Like if you support Trump, you're not a bad person, right? I think fundamentally you were put in a bad situation and you are trying to justify your situation by someone offering you a way out, right? And you got put in a bad situation because of a society and capitalism and all that works. I am at heart a capitalist, but what you're seeing in America is not capitalism at all. That's just like corruption. Right, what you're seeing in the world. Capitalism, everyone should be able to do whatever they want, assuming they provide a lot of economic outputs. That's capitalism to me. But, you see a lot of people, I was on a plane once, and this person was completely opposing political views, Trump supporter, all that stuff, right wing, super nice guy, amazing guy. And I would have beers with him, I'd go hang out with him, whatever. And he was telling me about the financial situation he's in. And he was telling me about all this. And then he was telling me why he likes some of Trump's policy and why he supports it. And to be honest, if I was in this situation, I would probably agree with him and I would probably support Trump because they are not looking, because of the situation, they are not looking 5 steps ahead. Like we have the privilege to. They are just thinking about tomorrow. Yeah. I don't know how to think about tomorrow because I can think about 10 steps ahead, right? Because I have the financial freedom to think about 2 months of what's going to happen and how I can plan my finances. Some people can only think to tomorrow. And so I am strongly for basic minimum income and all sorts of stuff, anything that can help people think for more than just tomorrow. Right? And I think that it frustrates me a lot that, there's all sorts of like weird tax scams and stuff that happens that people don't get their needs met. I am all for billionaires, and I'm happy to make $1 billion and stuff, but not at the expense of other people dying and other people not having their needs met, right? If other people are at the same playing field and you are more successful than them, that's fine. That's great.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really good point about like how relieving people of stress makes them smarter, make better decisions, and to escape that poverty cycle, right? I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
I hate when someone says, well, you should just work harder. You'll get out of poverty. No, they're in poverty because of the society and decisions that have happened. Whether or not they made good decisions or bad decisions, fine. But they can't just work their way out of it, right? They don't have the privilege to do that. And by being in poverty, you start making poor decisions, right? Your brain, there's a whole research around your brain fundamentally making poor decisions. And that's because they're thinking about tomorrow, right? Like I can go, you know what, I want to work on Eirene and I'm going to take this many years off work and like manage my finances, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to think about the core essentials, like how am I gonna eat food? I just bought a good HelloFresh box because I'm like, you know what, I don't want to go out shopping every day for groceries or Uber Eats, right? But people who are in poverty and in situations, they have to think about what am I going to eat for dinner, right? Actually, not like quality-wise, but what am I going to physically eat, right? Because I don't know if I can even afford to eat food, and so that really screws you up. And so I really want someone to kind of fix that. And whatever I can do, I try to do. And like the most I can do right now is just like help someone make better decisions if they're trying to start thinking about career in tech or whatever. And that's what I do. So maybe they can build wealth and they can pass it on.
Absolutely. I mean, that's phenomenal. Like, I mean, not to be a plug or anything, but it's kind of what we're trying to do here with the podcast.
That's why I agreed to this, right? When Henry told me, I said, I am not successful. I don't know why you want me on here. And he said, well, we want to hear your journey and help, other people maybe can be inspired. And I said, okay, great. If there's like, a high school kid watching this or someone in university, and I can have one kid go, cool, I want to go build startups and help other people out. Awesome. Then I've done, right? This is just purely for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it comes back down to that. Like even if this is a podcast, even if that one right person views it, we have achieved our goal. And even being able to like, again, the whole point of this was again, to get your story out. So again, thank you for being so open and forthright about a lot of the thoughts and concepts you've developed over this time. It's a great framework. For me, when I came upon that realization, like kind of like what you did, but for me it was like a hard wall I hit, where I always thought like I'll create this one business or this main thing behind me, like a brand.
Right.
And I want to create it, these SpaceX. I want to create, this like brand that kind of outlives me, but like that's a risk you take as a founder at that level, right?
Yes.
If you fail at that one thing, which I did about a few times, try to create as a big brand, you're back to square one.
Those big brands also start off with tiny brands, right? Like no one starts off a business. You want all your businesses to be Microsoft. But no one can start off Microsoft on day one. You have to build there slowly, incrementally. Just like your resume, just like everything in your life. I am where I am right now because of all these, there's a saying in India about something like little drops of water makes a lake or something. I don't know. But like the analogy is you're just improving 1%, right? And it will end up, you will look back and you'll be like, wow, I can't believe I did all that, right? Where I agree, when you guys said, oh, you've done a lot, and I'm like, I guess I've done a lot. If you do look at my LinkedIn or whatever, I'm like, cool, I have done a lot of crazy things. But that's just all incremental. I didn't actually start off by trying to do a lot of crazy things. It's just like, cool, I want to do this. I want to get better at this. I want to get better at this. So I consistently want to get better at whatever I do and try to identify weaknesses, try to fill those gaps, either by fixing myself or finding other people to kind of augment me, right? And I can augment them and help their weaknesses out.
Perfect. I mean, we're going to keep doing more of these, and we actually, I think we talked before, we're starting a recurring event, just to bring people in the community together, especially being located here in Scarborough.
It's amazing.
And doing this, right? Hope to see you there at these events.
Sure.
And people who are listening who want to come meet you can meet you there and get this kind of feedback and advice, right? Especially from someone who grew up in the same area, came out of here. I think it's inspiring to see because I mean, like I was talking to a few other guests here who are also from Scarborough. It's funny enough, like we're reconnecting the community almost here, right? And how the area has changed. You can go to Tim Hortons Starbucks nowadays across the city, and people are like, little kids are like doing coding exercises and like learning these new things, all that kind of things, right? Like you say, are you like as professionally looking to keep consulting for these small startups and small companies, or is it like a by meetup basis? Like
by meetup basis, right? Like right now, that's not the stage I'm in my life anymore, where I need to like do like consulting for equity or whatever, unless like the founders are great and the idea is something that will help me move forward in my personal career. Right now, like I'm consulting for bigger companies through Bitstrapped, and that's purely, that's getting me a lot of domain expertise, because that's what I value right now, of like learning about health tech or fintech and stuff like that, where I'm able to work on these projects, and it's giving me financial freedom to work on my own startup.
Yeah.
Right? And so by doing stuff like this, that's what I value a lot right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Right. Would love to have you back maybe in a few episodes down the road.
For sure.
Right. Get some more updates on what you're doing. And yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can keep in touch and see more of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.